Hey, everybody. Hey, welcome back to the 53206 cast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Meg.
And this is a podcast. It's a podcast specifically designed to help us engage in the process of rethinking our inner city spaces. Meg.
Yeah.
We have a guest.
Oh, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest. We're so excited to have Andre Lee Ellis here again to talk on the podcast. Andre Lee Ellis is the founder of We Got This Community Garden, and he now runs The Cage Garden over on 13th and Reservoir.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming. We're always you're just always such a wonderful person. I feel like we talk about you always in good regards on this podcast. So thank you for coming and just seeing your wonderful shining face.
It's cool to be here. You guys are super cool as well. I'm over at Cage. Community agricultural growing experiences right next to Firehouse 5, 1313 West Reservoir, and proud of it. Actually, it's we get ready to complete 3 years.
Wow.
That's quick.
Yeah.
It just goes. I bet you guys say the same thing, don't you?
Yeah.
What is it now for you?
3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So, at least I'll be able to keep count.
Yeah.
But just happy to be having another chance. But few things to share with you today.
Yeah. Well, and I know whenever I came over to the Cage Garden, it was just so beautiful. I mean, you've done such an incredible job over there with the labyrinth, and all the, obviously, I'm going to point out all the beautiful flowers that were growing a few months ago, but then just the boxes, just, overloaded with produce. So I was just, kudos to you as the incredible gardener you are.
Bruh. Yeah. That's the comedy part of the show, ladies and gentlemen, because number one, overloaded is right with those boxes.
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure out what to do exactly with those boxes and not overload them and try to get the best capacity out of them and yield as we can. Now, as far as being a gardener, not that at all. I enjoy gardening and the garden and what it does, but for me, it's I gotta have people around me that know it, that know what to do, and thank God for wonderful people, as you know, who come through to volunteer. You gotta have those teams, and I do want to say to people in the community, those of you out there listening, don't be shy about coming to volunteer in the gardens. If there's one in your neighborhood or one that you identify with, come, because it's the one place you can come and you can work. You can introduce yourself, but then you can find your own space of working and just be nice. And we need volunteers.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think definitely, and I think everyone, adds their own expertise, and that's just always wonderful. Whether it's, I always think about the people that came to We Got This Garden that were like, we want to provide lunches. They're not doing anything with gardening, but they provided lunches for the kids. And I'm sure you have similar experiences of people who don't, they're not gardening, but they're doing something that's so valuable.
Well, we did it together for many years over at We Got This, so we know everything. You know how I do it and how I work. You probably know where I make my mistakes at, whatever that is. But I think that what I'm most concerned with, the lack of food availability and access for people who need it most, like the homeless, like people who live in real impoverished areas. There's some poverty out there that we haven't seen, that we don't see because we kind of protect ourselves from it. We have to. We deal with it on a certain scale, but we got to have some peace of mind from it. But there's a poverty out there that we haven't seen, and an audience that has mental challenges, and we need to serve them.
Yeah.
You were, before we started recording, you were talking about a phone call you got from TMJ4, and you started to kind of lay all that out, and then we hit the record button. Do you mind continuing that thought?
Oh, I don't mind. I didn't know if we wanted to really have that talk, but I think you have to when you hear. And it was about the violence that happened over Christmas holiday, and a number of shootings and killings that happened that were just kind of out of control.
Yeah.
I would say, and it makes you keep saying, "Hey, what are we gonna do? We got to do something."
Right.
And I keep thinking to myself, "What if these are just the times? What if there's nothing? What if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and we're gonna lose some, we're gonna keep some? But it's hard because we have young children that are that age, that walk to school and walk to the store, and sometimes you don't have to be doing nothing to anybody to have an encounter, you know. And so you have to try to tell yours to be peaceful and to just keep your head down and don't look nobody straight in the eye or whatever, and somebody is really taunting them and may even have a weapon, you know. And so how do they deal with that? Because it's where they have to live. Imagine that. If where you have to live is so unsafe that you have to check every place before you show your face in the space.
Yeah.
You always got those one-liners, but you were specifically
Alex
talking.
like that.
I like that one.
You did. But
It's true, though.
But you were specifically talking about how gardens can help.
Oh yeah, it can help even in the biggest capacity, in the way of that number one. Whenever I work with a young black boy in the garden, he has his hands in the soil. I often find him looking up to take his hand and wipe the sweat from his brow. And that's when I asked them, and I said, when you look up, what do you see? And almost every time they say God. You know, and then I say, hey, what's your relationship with God? This is just, I'm giving you an example of what can happen in the garden. And they say, you know, I didn't really, when I got to know God, I was in jail. I was in jail, I got to know God, and if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't make it for jail. So now that you're out, what does God mean to you? God means everything, but you're here on a bracelet because of a crime that you committed even after being out of jail. So have you learned your lesson? But a lot of times the garden allow them to see themselves be a better self. So working in that soil, I always say, keep, as long as they have their hands in the soil, they can keep them off the trigger of a gun. But the garden, as you all know, it did it for us over here on 9th and Ring. It was a point when it was getting out of hand with the shootings and the different things, and now we almost have none really. Whatever. So they wanted to talk about it, but go ahead, Alex.
Well, just I feel like you know, I don't know. I'm sure other people along the way have stumbled upon the same thing that you've seen, but just the impact that you know, a garden or whatever working experience it is, a garden is easily accessible because, I mean, if I don't want to be presumptuous, Andre, but if you can do it and I can do it, I know I'm not I'm not skilled at all in gardening, but you know, it's an accessible way for a kid to feel like they've either accomplished something or they've contributed to something.
They have some
ownership over a space. And I mean, I've seen the same things that you've seen, not to the level that you've seen them, but certainly you start to see glimpses of it. You know, a kid that approaches the garden with one demeanor is leaving the garden different after they've spent time there.
It gives those children access to a memory that goes far into their future, possibly into their marriage. And if they have children, they talk about how they used to have a garden. And it may make them duplicate that because my grandmother had or we got this garden, or we went to the cage. And that may make them, believe it or not, gardens are all, I'm going to make up something. I'll have to do.
It's gonna be good.
Gardens, you're going to like this one, Alex.
All right.
Gardens are automatic legacy. You just never forget it, and praise God if somebody or neighborhoods catch on to it, and families carry on, and generations take care of a community garden, And so the healing that comes from a garden, I think it really helps young men when they are there and they're not in their elements.
Sure.
Because the garden is more peaceful, and it's a peace that they don't usually deal with. often I find this a lot. Do you all find a lot that the young children have already had some dealing with garden with a grandparent or somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they have just such a fond memory of it too. And so I think that's like just a piece of it's bringing them back to, a great memory, or just, they're, a family member, which I think is just a beautiful thing too.
And so do you think that maybe so in a way that a young black boy who have had a bad experience but come to the garden and be reminded of his grandmother who was trying to keep him from being in a bad experience, in a way going to the garden gives back to her whether she's dead or alive?
Yeah, that's powerful. I
mean that's what garden can really do. I mean, and also the food. It's just when I go in the grocery stores, it's kind of tough to look at it, and it's being more and more scarce. I'll use that word. I'm like, where is the fruit and vegetables, and why does it look so bad?
Yeah.
So we're doing hydroponics over at the firehouse. I wish I could brag on how great we're doing with that, but Alex, we just kind of trying to still get the hang of it. Every time I see a little green leaf, I think we got it together. Next thing I know, here comes something brown. And I said, oh, Lord, brown.
You'll get the hang of it,
We're going to get the hang of it. We got a lot of good machines, and we keep trying. We have had some success. We just want consistent success, because we got to have places and spaces where food is continually growing and coming and being accessible.
Yeah. How do we get more of that? Just more, there's, I think about our zip code, which is it's very similar to other zip codes in the city. Just there's so much space, so much vacant, unused space. I don't know. It's just always in the back of my mind. Like how do we help? Or, if it's appropriate, how do we help facilitate that?
But you keep accumulating. You guys, maybe you don't get this, but okay, every time I get another space, because now we've just acquired a space, or we're acquiring. We haven't exactly got it right on Humboldt and Center. I mean, you might have heard about it. We've got the River West, River Trail Commons condos coming up over there, and there's a space down the street that we're taking to make the River West Trail Community Garden, and it's going to come under the Cage umbrella.
Oh, nice.
But it's right there. And somebody said, "No, you're going to have another space?" And I'm like, "Yeah, hell yeah, we're going to have another space, because we don't." And if do you live across the street, or where do you live over here? Because I'm gonna need you to help me with this space. And you guys have acquired a number of spaces. You know what I mean? And so we shouldn't have to be so quiet about that.
Sure.
We shouldn't have to be sneaking to get that done and worried about what anybody think. That's for the good of mankind. And if they see that we have a formula for working that's working, we should be allowed to. And there should be more funding. There should be more accessible funding, and whatever. But there's a lot of great things happening now in agriculture. A lot of funding available that wasn't there. But we got to get you, and keep me on time too, because I will go. we have to share more. We don't share enough, and I think that the silos are hurting us, because I don't know what you're really doing over there, and if I really knew what you were doing over there, and you were comfortable with me knowing that, it would work better, because we could talk about I'm getting an enormous amount of tomatoes. Say, oh man, and I've got so many cucumbers, I don't know what to do with them. Okay, let me trade you some tomatoes for some cucumbers, and the language go into the community. We got this in Cage, exchange cucumbers and tomatoes today.
Yeah.
It's going to be quite like this podcast. We got this in Cage. I was on a podcast together, and boy, was it good. We had a good time.
That's good. That is good.
I'd love to hear. Just a recent story of a kid that is sticking out in your mind.
Khalil Ahmed, 13 years old. Came to me probably 4 months ago now, and when they introduced and explained Khalil to me, this young man, to me, they described him in probably the worst ways on probation. He's got this going on, he's got that going on, he's disrespectful, and this, that, and the other. And anybody that really kind of know that gets me charged up. Not in a way of, let me get to him, I'm going to get him, but in a way of let me try to find out how to get to him. And so we met, and I tell you, first day I met Khalil, he laid a conversation on me that was so intelligent and intellectual that I was like, how does this kid get into this space? And I had to ask him that, you know, and his answer was that he didn't feel loved enough.
Wow.
But then I found out that he was sort of manipulative about things, you know what I mean, use it in a manipulating way, but he's very smart and very cool, so I kept watching him. Then I started going up to the school, Dr. Martin Luther King School, and watching Khalil, and he was starting to do good, starting to get better. Then last week, Khalil got a suspension for one day, and so you said, kid that sticks out of my mind that's doing good, but here's what's doing good about Khalil is that he ran away from home last week, and my doorbell rang, and I looked out the door and I said, "Oh my Lord, that's Khalil." I said, "No." I said, "Who is he?" He says, "Khalil." And right when that happened, my phone rang. It was his grandmother, and she said, "Oh, Mr. Andre, Khalil just left out of the house. He and his mom had an argument. Can you, if he comes there, can you please let us know?" I said, "He's right here right now." But so that's a good thing about the story is that he didn't go somewhere to get in more trouble or not to be found or to be found in the worst way. That he left home and came straight to where he thought was safe for him. He came to me, and then I was able to get him to understand that he was the issue. That it's his. It's just because you can't get away don't mean that you run away to get attention. Things like that. But those kind of things. If I wasn't in the garden, I would have access to Khalil.
Yeah. Well, and a 13-year-old, we have a daughter who's 13, and she's not, you know, she's like, I feel like a 13-year-old, they need a lot of guidance, you know, and like if something happens where they're making stupid decisions, you know, they need those guardrails, and usually, you know, parents can help figure out those guardrails, but you know, I feel like they just make very stupid choices sometimes.
But you know yourself, you have to deal with generational curses and generational negativities and situations. And so some of what is poverty that we see, I think, is practice poverty, that they seem normal. My grandmama did this, and my great-grandmama did this. They made it to 85 or 90 years old, you know. And then you get one that is outstanding to decide they want to step out the box and go be a little sophisticated and make it. And that one becomes sort of a black sheep in the family, and, you know, things like that. But I think that the garden for me, even in my own family, is such a good communication piece. When somebody's having a hard time, I'm having tremendous success with my grandson's son, Peanut Deontay, who was typical teenager and was dealing with some things, and just it's coming around differently. I don't even like to talk about it out loud a lot, because I always feel like the devil don't know your thoughts. He hear you say something, he say, "Ooh, let me go tamper with that." But great success with the young men in the garden.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I'm sure you've probably got dozens and dozens of similar stories. Yeah.
I got a few, but I mean, I'm just trying to think of one that I like. Jalen. Okay, let's go with Jalen Gray. Jalen Gray is a young man who has long locks of hair, very smart, very laid back, and almost act older than his age, as most of them do now. But he acts a little older than his age, and came to the fire department and working in the garden. And I said, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Anybody ever thought of that? And he said, a firefighter. And so I said, oh, okay, well, everybody take a break. Great, Jalen, come with me. And I took him right in the firehouse and introduced him to Captain Phil Colcroft over there at Firehouse 5, 1313 West Reservoir Avenue. Shout out, woo, woo. And had a conversation. Next thing I know, Jalen was registered and getting ready to start training classes to be a cadet. He's still in high school.
Wow, that's so cool.
And if, don't quote me on this, because there may be a firefighter or somebody listening, but I think they get paid, I'm going to say it this way, a very generous salary early on in life.
Good, yeah.
For the work.
That's great. They got a hard job,
I wanted to say a number, but I didn't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, don't tell them that is half of that.
Just when you're talking about that, when we got a group of kids that we got this, or when Meg's working with a group, just kind of randomly, or pick up one of the kids and we're